Ben Domenech, editor-at-large at The Spectator, Fox News contributor. He runs his own podcast. And Ben has a fabulous new article. Antony Blinken embodies decades of failure. At least it seems like the Secretary of State is having fun. This is a reference, of course, to the famous garage band that Tony Blinken plays in. One of his band members is my college roommate, so I don't want to rag too much on the band. But
I didn't know that, Hugh. I should come to you for a comment. That's a random connection I didn't know about.
It is a very random connection. But I went and saw him play at the British Embassy, and that was fine, but it wasn't the Ukraine thing. Ben, I want to start by saying yesterday's commentary podcast included John Podhoretz saying, and I want to quote it for you so I get it right, that something had changed in the mindset of the people Obama was appealing to, and they were his people. And they don't like action. They don't like world action. They don't like decisive action. Maybe they like, a fun little hit. They like going in, get bin Laden, then you jump back out. You go in and out. Then you write your piece, and it's the same thing. The never escalate crowd is in charge, and Tony Blinken is their face.
Yeah. No, that's a very... I hadn't heard that, but I completely agree with John on that point. I think that this is, when you look back at Tony Blinken's career and you look at the different things and decisions that he's been a major part of in terms of really defining, I would say, foreign policy for the Democratic Party for, a significant chunk of the last 20 years, you see someone who is always in this modal state of trying to sort of prevent any escalation, not understanding that actually what he's doing by being in that state is often making things worse. Sometimes you need chemotherapy to beat cancer. Sometimes you have to go through the really hard part in order to get out on the other end and be stable and be healthy. And I think that when it comes to his approach to foreign policy, he is very much, in that mode of not making any of these tough decisions and not making them in the right time frame, and ultimately making everything worse because of it. And that's really.
And I want to say, all the people I'm about to reference, Jake Sullivan, Wendy Sherman, Tony Blinken, they're all very nice, right? They're nice people. They also have a worldview that is inconsistent with reality. And the reality is arriving at any time in Iran, because they're 3 weeks away from breakout, according to the Washington Post yesterday. 3 weeks, Ben. Now, you've heard every Democrat for 12 years say they will name Obama in 3.5 years of Biden. We will never allow Iran to get a nuke. Well, are they going to bomb them or not, Ben?
Yeah. Are you going to do something about it? I mean, it's just, look, the thing that is infuriating about this, I'll tell you something. You and I both live in relatively the same area, and when you're in the Commonwealth of Virginia, have you driven by Tony Blinken's house in the last couple of months? Because
No.
I have. It's on the way actually to one of my daughter's things, and so occasionally I drive past it, and out in front, across the street from where he lives, which is a very Tony area, it is an absolute mess of anti-Israel protesters who have taken up position there, yelling and screaming and, doing their normal thing on a regular basis. And you have kind of this, the row of protective cars and that type of thing, in front of his house, and then they're just yelling stuff. I will admit to have driven past them and raised a middle digit on occasion.
Good. I am glad you do.
But it kind of reflects in that instance the divide within the Democratic Party. Meaning, on one side you have this incompetent, ineffectual people who are not actually going to make the world a better place, in Tony Blinken, and then on the other side you have these radicals who are absolutely out of their minds, who are driving this policy approach because they are out in front, screaming in front of their house, screaming in front of their meetings, screaming in front of, ultimately in Chicago, their convention, and those are the people who they are being tugged toward. So their frame of the way that the world works right now is completely off base because of the people that they're listening to and because of the people who are in charge.
Now, this is all laid out for people if they get Foreign Affairs magazine. Ambassador Robert O'Brien has the new Peace Through Strength article, and Ben Rhodes is in it. Now, Ben Rhodes was a failed novelist and a great speechwriter who somehow ended up as the deputy national security advisor as opposed to Trump's Matt Pottinger, who speaks Mandarin and lived in China.
You invoking him, Hugh, I immediately have the flashback to him sitting on the curb outside of 2016, weeping away the night as Hillary lost.
The other flashback is him paying his own way to go to Fidel Castro's funeral. And, they're probably perfectly nice. They're just not very smart. And they have come up with this Nixon to China 2.0, we'll bring Iran into the family of nations. They're fanatical theocrats who are killing the Israelis and would like to see all the Jews gone and then us. What part of this? Did you watch Ted Cruz with Barbara Leaf yesterday?
Yes.
And Barbara Leaf, I'll play a little bit next. She can't answer a question.
No,
because it's a mess.
Not even a little bit. No, it's and by the way, I think one of the things that we've really had laid bare here over the last several years, and really it should have been laid bare more in the Obama era, is that these people that they tell us are so smart, they aren't. They don't know what they're doing. They're flying blind in so many different circumstances, and yet these are the people who got back in charge again. Many of them. During this Biden administration, and that's why we're in such a pickle. And I encourage everyone to read the Robert O'Brien piece that you just referenced. And also, Christian Whiten had a good piece in National Interest laying out kind of his side of what he perceives in terms of the message that O'Brien wants to send about what a Trump 2.0 foreign policy would bring. But look, they've got, if they get back in there, they have a lot of work to do to get us back on a firm footing, just given how bad things have been, and in many ways, set us back, in a way that I think is going to be a real challenge to come from in terms of the different decisions that have been made under Biden that have really weakened us on the international stage.
Ben, well, next week we got to talk about how the Aspen Institute has sort of ruined foreign policy in America because it's all about cocktail parties and aspirin, and they really don't know. Wendy Sherman did the North Korea 1994 deal, the JCPOA deal, most of the Biden first term. She's representative of what happens when you put social workers and novelists in charge of foreign policy, and it's a disaster. But let me ask you a political question, Ben. Purely objectively, the short list that I believe is real is Doug Burgum, Tom Cotton, Mike Pompeo, Marco Rubio, and Glenn Youngkin. Tim Scott may be on that as well. Of those six, who helps President Trump become President Trump again the most?
Well, I think I've said this to you before, but if I'm repeating myself, forgive me. I actually think that Marco Rubio helps him the most. And the reason that I think that he helps him the most is that he brings in every single Nikki Haley voter without naming Nikki Haley. And I think that he also is someone who, frankly, has matured a lot and cements the unity within the party in a way that I think would be very helpful. I think Mike Pompeo is the smartest guy on that list, but I also think he's kind of a waste as a VP. He would dominate a debate. He would, be a phenomenal advocate. If you wanted to deploy him as a Dick Cheney level VP who was, very active and running things, that would be one thing. But I think that you could put him in virtually any cabinet spot and he would be phenomenal. So, in terms of running, though, I think that the problem that you face, of course, with Rubio is that you have the same state issue.
The 12th Amendment would lead to litigation about whether or not the Florida electors had to be disqualified, which could lose Trump the presidency.
Yeah, no, I think that that's the issue that has to be resolved before you name anyone. But just in terms of being a phenomenal advocate who can appeal to the growing Latino base of support for the Republican Party, I think that there is no one as close as Rubio is. And I think that he also has an extremely intelligent policy approach that would be, a way of sort of saying, how do we actually apply Trump's policy in a second term in a way that really helps the people who need it the most? Look, Hugh, we really have a problem here in America because the number of issues that we have to resolve that have been worsened under this Biden agenda are enormous. But I think that they can be solved. They just need smart people and the good and right people to be in the right position to make them happen.